Steve has joined us now. Give me one moment. Okay, the recording has started.
Okay, thank you. I will call this meeting to order. This is a work session for the board with agency staff. Attendees from the public are welcome to observe. The chat function as well as the attendee cameras and microphones will be turned off. If you would like to submit public comment, please do that through the ODAV website for the April 2nd, 2026 board meeting. And I will turn it back to Alexis for the roll call.
Absolutely. Bill Gropp.
Can you hear me?
Bill Gropp. Yeah, now we can.
Okay.
Present, right?
Yes.
Okay. Jim Knight.
I'm present.
Perfect. Sarah Lucas.
Present.
Okay. Steve Nagy.
Here.
Okay. Brian Prang. Brian Prang let us know that he's unable to attend today. Is his absence excused?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff Pritchard.
Present.
And Catherine Stevens.
Present.
And that concludes our roll call.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, this work session, we have a couple of topics. Our first one will be a state-owned airports reserve SOAR update with Tony.
All right, good morning. And you all can hear me okay? All right.
Yes, we
I'm
can.
just going to share my screen. And this should be a fairly short update, but pause me at any time if you have any questions. If there's anything that you'd like me to go in a little more detail, happy to at any point. Just going to go through the administrative rule, a quick overview of SOAR, and go over prior cycles 1 through 5 and those project status. We're also going to take a look at the cash balance. And then I'm going to give a preview of Cycle 6 SOAR funding requests. And those requests we're planning to bring to the April 2026 board meeting next month. But this is just a quick preview of what we're looking at. And then we'll take a look at how much funding we expect to be available for the next cycle and the projects that had carried forward previously and that we'll be looking at carrying forward from Cycle 3 and how that's going to look for prioritizing and funding projects for the next cycle. The Aviation System Action Program Fund was created by the legislature in 2015 by House Bill 2075, and then there was a sunset that was removed in 2021 that made that funding permanent. And this program is funded by a 2-cent per gallon fuel tax on aviation fuels. And then the administrative rule, Chapter 738, Division 124, explains how that program is established, the administration of the program, and the purpose of the ASAP funds. And the bulk of that funding goes to core. And after some other administrative costs, a little less than 25% of that aviation fuel tax goes to the SOAR reserve. So that is for that little under 25% goes to projects at state airports for safety improvements, including maintenance, and for infrastructure projects. Administrative Rule 738-124-0090 addresses the SOAR program and especially the process for the department preparing a list of proposed projects that serve at least one of the purposes described in that previous rule I just shown, and how we provide that to the board. The board can approve or reject the projects in the list, and they may also increase or decrease the dollar amounts allocated to projects that it approves for SOAR. A quick look at prior cycles. So in cycle 1, when ASAP created in 2015, there was a little under $1.8 million generated by the tax for SOAR. And we had spent almost all of it. We completed all of cycle 1 projects. We had one fairly large project reconstructing the Crescent Lake State Airport, the runway there and the parking apron. And then we had a handful of smaller maintenance and equipment projects. In cycle 2, we were able to get through most of the smaller projects. We had some fuel tank and card reader replacements at Cottage Grove and the card reader replacement at Joseph. We completed the property purchase at Bandon, and then had done some of the ditch and floodgate repair at Pacific City. We were starting design. We had completed design on the Malino water fire suppression project, but when we completed that, we did not have funding to construct. And then we did not have funding to design or construct the Prospect runway reconstruction project at the time. When cycle 3 was approved in February 2020, we still didn't have funding for the 2 larger projects from cycle 2, the Malino and Prospect projects. And then very shortly after, our revenues were heavily impacted from COVID. So we ended up implementing a pause on SOAR projects after completing the property purchase component of this cycle 3 project for Pacific City. We paused SOAR from 2020 through 2022. And while that revenue impact was happening, and we also switched the 2 obstruction removal projects from SOAR here at Aurora and Malino over to federal funding, since those airports are eligible for FAA funds. During that time, and from 2022 until today, we have been prioritizing urgent safety projects such as obstruction removal and replacing failing runways. So we had applied in cycle 4 for the runway and electrical rehab legislative match for Cape Blanco. And then we were also able to squeeze in a couple of the smaller projects, such as the Toledo apron construction. In cycle 5, we included the matching portion for a Connect Oregon grant for the Oak Ridge project, and that is actually summer 2026. This year is when we'll be constructing that project. The obstruction removal equipment acquisition was completed last year, and so that portion actually came under budget, and that amount is just being reverted back into the fund to go toward other projects. We also, every cycle, fund contingency for projects and a maintenance airport worker fund for a temp position that we have out in Joseph. So a quick recap of cycles 1 through 5. Again, cycle 1, all of the projects were completed. And then for cycles 2 through 5, every project except for the first 3 in cycle 3 have either been started, are in progress, or are in the process of closing out. So we have the Malino water fire suppression project at Malino that is planning to be constructed this year. The Prospect runway project is in the process of closing out. And then we're carrying forward the equipment, capital equipment for all airports. And then we have not started the planning and ALP updates for Cape Blanco or Cascade Locks. And then I have an update here in just a minute on Pacific City on the drainage improvements. And then we're closing out Cape Blanco from cycle 4. And then we will be constructing cycle 5 here this year at Oak Ridge. So the total amount for all of these in progress or carry forward projects is $2,750,000 and some change. As of October 2025, our cash balance in SOAR is a little over $3 million. And the total, again, carried over from cycles 2 through 5 for encumbrances, adding an estimated $1.8 million per biennium forecasted revenue leaves us with about $2,229,224 for funding availability for this next cycle. And so that estimated revenue, again, looking over prior cycles, notwithstanding the impacts from COVID at that time, but that's about how much we're forecasting to receive for the next 2 years. And so we're planning around that amount. Okay, well, I'll just kind of pause here really quick because I'm just running through this kind of fast, I feel like. Any questions so far on anything about prior cycles or SOAR in general?
Yeah, Tony, I have a question. How do you set your contingency amount?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sorry, I've got noise around me. How do you set your contingency amount right now? I think it said 100,000.
Yeah, it's been, I think that was originally set before I started here, and then we just continued to just ask for that same amount. That is something that we've looked at for cycle 6 and have increased. So we are looking at a little bit more, but it has just, I can't say how it was originally set.
Yeah, to me, it's depending, of course, on the projects that you have that year, that could be a bit low.
Right. Yeah. In the future requests that I'm going to get into here in just a second, we try to make sure that we have enough funding that we're asking for the specific project. And again, in that example of the obstruction removal equipment, that came in about $70,000 under, and that was, we did a procurement and one of the proposals came in low. So that was a great savings. And again, that just wraps back into the overall fund. But for small projects, things that, that are either unforeseen or if there's a increased cost to one of the projects, it just gives us a little more flexibility to get all the work done.
That makes sense. I don't see any other raised hands, so you can continue.
Great. All righty. This is what we're looking at for cycle 6. So we are looking at a fairly large ask for capital equipment, and this is to benefit all state airports. This is equipment that's primarily going to be based at our office here in Salem, and this includes replacing a more than 20-year-old service truck that is in dire need of replacement. Similarly, large trailers that are very old and need a replacement. And again, I'm going to have all of the details for these asks in our April meeting, and I'll go into a lot more detail and showing how we got to these numbers. We're also looking at snow removal, so plows for our larger service trucks. We're looking at upfit costs for replacing vehicles and some tractors. So including the $100,000, this was added in cycle 3 for a tractor replacement at Joseph. So this would allow us to reallocate one of the tractors over to Joseph and replace some of the tractors and mowing equipment that we need as well. And again, I'm going to have a lot more information on what this is all planning to use for in April. One of the biggest asks, the biggest ask for this cycle is Pacific City, and there's a host of maintenance and improvements that we're looking at for drainage improvements. We're looking at constructing the access road, which is on the new property that we acquired back in 2020. And then we are looking at a rehab of the apron as well as an expansion of that parking apron so we can get more aircraft tied down. And this was a project that we had recently completed a floodplain development application, and there's a time frame on when construction has to start and complete. So by approving this project in this cycle will allow us to meet those deadlines so we can get that project completed. If we can't meet that time frame, the permitting requirements will be significantly greater. So we're really trying to get all of this work done within that time frame. At Independence, we are looking at a drainage study. This is an issue that has been recurring at that airport for a long time. The tenants out there, I continue to hear from them of issues during heavy rainfall with water, stormwater not draining quickly or approaching or even going into hangars. So it's a huge issue for folks out there, and this is the first in what will be a multi-process, multi-phase process to be able to identify the needs and what potential improvements we need to make to address them. And then we have smaller projects, maintenance issues. At Aurora, we have a significant gate repair, and we need to relocate that gate because it's actually hitting a hangar building, and so we're proposing that. At Siletz Bay and Independence, we have some very old beacons that we're looking to replace, and then for Toledo and Siletz Bay, we have some windsock pole replacements needed as well. We have Independence, Milano, and Lebanon. We own 3 hangars that are in need of roof replacements. So at around a $45,000 per hangar quote that we received, this is what we're proposing, $135,000 to replace the roofs on all 3 of those. ODAV is responsible for exterior maintenance on the hangars that we own, and we do not have sufficient operating funds to complete that work. We're doing a lot of tree removal at all of our airports. We do have one fairly large tree in very close proximity to a hangar at Independence, and this does require some specialized care in getting that tree removed. So we're looking at about $4,000 to hire a contractor to come in and get that done. And then at Milano, we have 2 buildings that ODAV owns that are shown to be removed in the current master plan. And one of them is the quad hangar that is, it was damaged in a windstorm back in 2021. We have not been renting that space because it's not structurally sound, and we're just looking to go ahead and get that removed so it doesn't cause any other damage or injury. The other building out there is the old clubhouse. This is a very old building, and it's very unique and I think cherished, but it also has significant maintenance issues, and it continues to leak. Again, it's slated to be replaced, so it's not worth investing into that building to keep it. So we're planning to have it removed as well. We also need to complete about $80,000 worth of maintenance and security improvements at the air traffic control tower. So again, I'll go into more detail on what that all includes in the next meeting. And then at Nehalem, we're working through our interagency agreement with state parks on how we operate that airport. And there's some access control and some other signage improvements, as well as some changes to the taxi lane and tie downs that we're looking to make to improve that airport. So the total projects come to a little over $2 million. We are looking at, again, a slightly higher contingency for projects and maintenance of $150,000. And then with our cost of living increases, we do need to increase the amount that we're looking at for our worker fund for the biennium. And so that's for our temp worker, but we're also looking at a maintenance staff offset for our staff that go out to all 28 airports from Salem. And so the total amount that we're requesting for cycle 6 is a little over $2.5 million. From the previous slide, I mentioned that we had $2.2 million available. And I also mentioned previously that we have started or in progress with almost all of these projects. We haven't started these 2 yet. And so we're proposing to carry these 2 forward. While I want to go back to cycle 6 here. While this is a really big list of projects, and this will address a backlog of prior cycle projects, a lot of maintenance needs, and prior commitments, there's still a lot more need than we have funding available. There's a lot of need in pavement maintenance, and we have 22-year-old airport layout plan drawings for all of our airports that are in need of updating. And so in future cycles, we'll be looking at a statewide for all state airports, a planning and ALP update. We also need for statewide state airport appraisals and rate updates, as well as off airport at the non-NIPIUS airports for easement acquisition and obstruction removal. We're also interested in looking into fuel storage replacements and improvements, and resilience improvements as well. So there is still a ton of need. This is how we have prioritized projects for cycle 6. And then again, we will be looking at a big ask basically every cycle going forward. But with that, because we're looking at a statewide ALP and planning update, then we're looking to essentially get economies of scale with these two projects, looping them in and getting all of the airports done. So that's why we're proposing to carry these two projects forward, and the total amount is for $390,000. By carrying those forward, that essentially reduces the cycles 2 through 5 encumbrances by that amount, which makes our total funding available for cycle 6 a little over $2.6 million, with just $100,000 in cash balance remaining. So that is the end of the presentation. That's just again a quick overview of the SOAR funding, prior cycles, what we're looking at for cycle 6. I wanted to get this information to the board and to the public early, so that's why I'm bringing it to you all in this work session. And then again, we'll have more project information, as well as the amounts that we're getting those finalized for the April ask when we ask for the board's vote on approval.
Okay, thanks for that update, Tony. Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it makes sense to do the ALP updates all at the same time, but there's more components to both of those airport projects. So I'm wondering if you have broken out the cost to do just the obstruction removal and just the pilot's lounge remove. That's the removal, right? Or is that an add?
Right. The obstruction removal, and thank you, that's a great point. That component we've actually completed when we did the Cape Blanco project in 2024 and in 2025. So that portion has actually been done, and that's another example of us taking advantage of the new equipment that we acquired, not having to hire out specifically for that.
Yep.
The other portion, so the pilot lounge at Cascade Locks, in cycle 1, back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, there was a restroom that was removed. And so that I've been looking with state parks at Nehalem, and they have vault toilets or chemical toilets on contract for, what you would find at any state park. And those range, I think, from around $40,000 to $60,000. And that's something that we could look at installing at Cascade Locks. Again, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a lower priority. We have a porta potty out there that we do service twice a month. So we do have a restroom, at least a portable toilet option. But again, in terms of overall need, that portion ranks fairly low.
Okay, thanks for that. And then I see a hand raised, and it's Steve.
Thank you for the update, Tony. Sorry, I'm on my phone because my internet connection isn't great. So that's why I don't have my video on. Sorry about that. What I wanted to ask is, you said we will see some of the other, the larger details of the equipment ask and things at next month's board meeting. Is that what I thought I heard you say?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Can you also, just as you think about those, obviously we have a system of airports here with the international airports and our GA airports. And many times, for frontline equipment, we buy brand new for the GAs, for the vehicle, the trucks and things that they need every day. But limited use equipment like snow plows, we take as hand-me-downs and give to those. So I would ask between now and then if you guys would perhaps want to check with ODOT and others for those limited use equipments in order to kind of help your budget and your project ask. Sometimes for that limited use things, it's best to just find very lightly used and good pieces of hand-me-down equipment that can help save you all on your capital plan.
Definitely. Great comment. Thank you very much. So when I mentioned snow plows, what I meant was a plow attachment to our current service trucks that we use year round. And so we are definitely looking at getting the most out of everything we have. And we are not looking at, specific or, single use equipment. We're even talking about the tractor that we're bringing out for mowing out of Joseph, to be able to utilize that for snow removal so that, again, one piece of equipment can meet our needs in all seasons. And so we're looking at, for just the plow attachments to our current service trucks based in Salem, we're looking at, I can't remember how much we were estimating just for those, but it's a fraction of what a single, actual plow truck would cost.
Yes, understand. But even for things like that, that are limited use, we will recycle some of our less used equipment at no cost sometimes to the small airport. So you might want to check. ODOT may even have plows like that that are being sent to surplus that can be fitted onto those trucks as well, and just save the ODAV overall budget as well. And
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. We do get emails with new inventory at the state surplus. So old equipment from different state agencies, ODOT included. We get even military. So we have acquired a few pieces of old military or National Guard equipment. And we're always looking out for savings there. So we'll definitely do that. And I appreciate your comment.
And I'm going to scroll through and look and see if there's any other raised hands. But I did want to also ask you about the current ALPs. And I realize they haven't been officially updated for a while, but are you doing pen and ink changes when when there's something that changes?
No, we haven't gone through an exercise to update those documents. So we, through our 12 federally funded airports, we do full master plans for those, and we have a handful that are due for master plans, and they're coming up soon. So yes, on those we definitely do pen and ink changes, keep those ALPs current. For the other 16 non-federally airports, we have documents through some work we did back in 2004, but they have not been updated.
Okay. Right. Any other questions for Tony?
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that update. And thanks for bringing it to us at a work session ahead of the board meeting. That's actually really helpful for us to see it before we get to the board meeting where we need to vote on it.
Great.
All right. So up next is the 2027-29 legislative concept discussion, and that is with Kristen.
Okay, great. Good morning. Can you see my screen okay? Okay,
Yes,
so I'm going to, okay, great. So I'm going to do a legislative concept overview today. So we're not going to get into details of the legislative concepts that we're proposing yet. So I just want to give you an overview of what to expect for future board meetings. So the background, so a legislative concept is anything that the agency is wanting to introduce that's going to change legislation. So we put it in as a legislative concept. And then if it also has any revenue or expenditure impact, then it has a POP that accomplishes it. A POP is a policy option package. And I'll give you a little snapshot of the budget development so you can see where it all falls into place. So right now we're working on our budget development for the 27-29 budget. So this is the budget that will execute from July 1st, 2027 to June 30th of 2029. So you can see we're at the very beginning of the process right now. So we're in the early budget prep right now. So basically we're crunching all the numbers. We're working on our revenue forecast right now. There is a state economist that does the jet fuel forecast for us, and we received that in early April. So that'll give us a really good idea of what our revenues are going to look like for the budget. And then we're also, of course, figuring out all of our expenditures right now too. So right now we're doing a snapshot of all of our positions that we have right now. They call it a PICS freeze. And then we'll know what positions we have available for the next budget and how much that'll cost. And then we're also working on our expenditures. So basically we start with our base budget and we add a little bit for inflation. And that inflation number, the state gives us what we put in. So for the last budget, it was 4.2%. And then that's how we come up with our base budget. So when we're done with that, we'll have a better idea of if we need any revenue increases for the budget, if we need to make any cuts. Right now, when I'm doing the initial preliminary calculations, it looks like we will need some sort of revenue increase just to be able to maintain what we currently have in the budget. And then we're also, Kenji has been developing some ideas for some drone legislative concepts as well. And right now we're working with the governor's office and CFO office, and they have to approve those before we can present those to the board and go public with those. So that'll be upcoming in a future board meetings. And so you can just see the whole process, those legislative concepts, they become bills and then they go through the session. And if those are approved, then those become part of our budget. And then at the end of June, we get our legislatively adopted budget and then we can start executing it. And that's in 2027. So here's a little more detail of the legislative concepts in the timeline there. So at the next board meeting, we're going to have a discussion on the legislative concepts and we're going to do a vote. And then we have another opportunity in May. If the board has any questions on those concepts, I can come back and bring some more details at that meeting as well. So in April 10th is where we submit either our legislative concepts or our placeholders to DAS. So a placeholder would be if we don't have all the details of what we want to submit for the legislative concept, we can put in a placeholder and that gives us a little more time to work on it and refine it before it's finalized. And then May 20th is where the legislative placeholder information is due. And then at the end of May is the last day for approval of those legislative concepts. So they have to get approved from the board, from the governor's office and the chief financial office. And if we get all of those approvals, then they'll start to get drafted by the legislative concept or the legislative council, I'm sorry. And that's when they'll start drafting those bills for us. So that is just a little timeline of what to expect in the future for the concepts. So that's all I had for us for today. And like I said, the next couple of meetings, we'll go into a lot more detail of what the concepts are. And I see, looks like Kenji's wanting to input something.
Yep. Catherine, okay to go?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. So quick thing for everybody. We can't even present LCs to the board before we get the approval from GO, governor's office, and CFO. And that's why we don't have it here. That's still in process. We've been doing back and forth with them because there's some strict parameters that the governor's office put out in terms of what can go in as LCs and such. So there's governor's guidance and we're doing justifications and we're talking about budget. So we're going back and forth. We do plan on getting it to all the board members with plenty of time to digest, look at it. So when the time comes, there can be a robust discussion. We don't want to end up in a situation where it's like we're right there and suddenly a decision has to be made or where with a day's notice, right? So we will get that out to you. It's just a matter of just getting that approval. So just want to put context on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenji, for clarifying that. Does the board have any questions?
Scrolling through, it's always good to be grounded in what the timeline looks like. So that is very helpful. And I don't see any raised hands.
Sorry, I couldn't raise my hand. Just
Okay,
wanted to
go ahead.
comment and say thank you, Kenji, for saying that you will get us these in advance so that we all as board members have a time to digest the legislative concepts and have a kind of a meaningful discussion then at the board meetings or future work sessions as well. And since from Kristen's kind of debrief or brief here on it, especially from a revenues forecast, it looks like that there needs to be additional revenue generation for the organization, and that's in a legislative concept. I think that's one that not just us as board, but and I know the agency is working on some working groups for that. I think that that's a good place for those working groups to lean into that work as well. So if it's looking like revenue generation is part of one of the legislative concepts, I think it'll be good for us to see it and good for those working groups with industries to have that conversation as well early in advance.
Yep, Steve, 100% on that. And for the legislative concept, we're trying to keep it fairly loose, so we aren't prescriptive in the recommendations, right? Because we want to wait for the output from the group that's really consensus based, rather than having a predetermined outcome. So when we have those conversations, everything's on the table, right? So I think that's your comments are spot on. So thanks for reinforcing that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Do you know the timing of that legislative group that you I'm forgetting the terminology that you just used?
Yeah, so the work group, we're still waiting on Chair McLean to set that date because it's subject to both the Chair McLean and Senator Rocksmith's schedules. That's the primary driver. I think they're right now just really tied up with session, but we're working with their schedulers to try to find a time that works for everybody. And once that's done, then we can get out that notice and get everybody together, hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right, that makes sense. I know everybody's trying to push to get the short session wrapped up. So, okay, I see no other raised hands. So our next meeting date is April 2nd at Sisters Eagle Airport. Very much looking forward to that visit out to Sisters and see what they have going on. And with that, unless there's anything else, Alexis, we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
all.
Bye.